Protesters have taken to the streets of cities in the Middle East, once again over Donald Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. These pictures from Jordanian TV show thousands of people gathering in the capital, Amman. Well, we're covering the story from all angles. Oren Lieberman is in Jerusalem. Awa Damon is in the West Bank. Awa, to you first. What's happening right now?
There's been clashes that have been going on pretty much all day. Just give me a second to put my helmet back on as well, because there are rocks that are being thrown. You can see this is just one of the flashpoints that we've been seeing throughout the West Bank, throughout Jerusalem to a certain lesser degree, and in Gaza as well. We've had demonstrations like this, clashes like this, happening on a fairly regular basis ever since President Trump made that announcement about the status of Jerusalem. But we are beginning to see them intensify. We are beginning to see the crowds pick up. We are beginning to see them longer and more determined when it comes to just wanting to try to confront the Israeli forces. You have what become fairly common flashpoints. This is one of them. We were at another one earlier in the day. That one was broken up fairly quickly, but this particular location has been fairly regular throughout. You have these confrontations all the time. You can see the ground. I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually, the street is covered with rocks that the youth here, most of the youth, have been throwing at the Israeli security forces. They're responding with tear gas, with rubber bullets. And the concern, of course, amongst the broader population is, where do they go from here? They do feel as if they have a certain amount of momentum because of the support that they have seen through demonstrations taking place in other parts of the world and other parts of the region. There's a sense that there's a certain level of perhaps broader momentum because of the summit that took place in Istanbul that led to the declaration, the recognition by the Islamic Muslim nations that they would consider East Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Palestine. But at the same time, there's also this reality that happens here on a fairly regular basis. Now, as I was saying, intensifying over the course of the last few days, there was a massive call, of course, from the leaders of various different parties, including Hamas and Fatah, for people to come out onto the streets to try to confront the Israelis wherever they can. But at the same time, a lot of people are wondering, where do these kinds of clashes go? How do they actually move forward at this stage and try to bring about a longer-lasting solution? And a lot of questions as to whether or not is that actually possible at all.
Okay, Awa Damon, thanks so much. We'll come back to you if there's any more movement there. Oren Lieberman, you're by the old city. I think you're at Damascus Gate. Give us a sense of what's happening where you are. Friday prayers are over.
Some 35,000 worshippers prayed at Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is a staggeringly high number for what is otherwise an average Friday. Of course, it's not average because of Donald Trump's announcement last week, and that is what propelled or compelled all of these worshippers here. The vast many of them left fairly quickly and fairly peacefully. There was some violent pushing and shoving as Israeli security forces tried to clear out those worshippers as quickly as possible. You can see the barriers here in place behind me in front of the Damascus Gate. That was a measure of crowd control to kind of try to keep people moving in one direction, try to get them out, essentially, to try to end the tension here as quickly as possible. Of course, it remains tense, and it will remain tense, especially with what's coming next week. Vice President Mike Pence visiting the region, expected to visit Jerusalem. So if today was bigger than last week, it's very possible that next week will be bigger than this week. Again, a very high number of worshippers at Al-Aqsa. This is one of the flashpoints in Jerusalem, and it will remain so as the region itself remains tense. Watching what comes next and what Mike Pence says on his visit may have an impact on how big next Friday is. But as Arwa pointed out, we've seen clashes across Jerusalem and across the West Bank because of a continued anger, a simmering anger in many ways over the announcement of Trump.
Yeah, like you say, it's certainly gathering momentum, and that's the sense that we're getting from Awa Damon as well. Awa, back to you. I think you're being able to take your gas mask off and just give us again a sense of what you're seeing there on the ground there in the West Bank.
You know,
Look, you see people's anger and frustration expressed in many different ways. Of course, these scenes, these types of clashes, they're fairly common here whenever these issues, this tension rises up to the forefront. And of course, that announcement by President Trump about the status of Jerusalem has literally, as many people here will tell you, just thrown not even gasoline on the fire, an entire oil tanker on the fire. People, to a certain degree, feel not only has the U.S. lost its position as being a potential honest broker in any sort of future peace talks, but also that perhaps President Trump deliberately wanted to try to inflame tensions in the region. When you speak to the Palestinians, the youth who are out here engaging in these types of clashes, they'll say, look, we don't have anything else to fight back with. We could go out and try and protest peacefully, but we can't. We're not allowed to do that. Even when we try to do that, it serves nothing. And this is the only thing that we have to fight back with, these rocks that they keep throwing at the Israeli security forces. They know that they're not going to win this battle. It's not necessarily about trying to win or gain ground. It's about trying to make that statement. And people really feel as if at this point they need to make a very strong statement. Of course, when you speak to members amongst the Palestinian leadership, they are to a certain degree wanting to see things grow and develop into widespread, as peaceful as they can possibly be, demonstrations, again, trying to capitalize, as I was saying earlier, on this momentum that they feel exists right now. Because after President Trump made that declaration, no other country followed suit. So for the Palestinians, they are taking that to a certain degree as being a reflection of how other nations feel. They feel to a certain degree as if they are not perhaps entirely on their own at this stage. But then, of course, the question becomes, where do they go from here? Does this situation, do these types of clashes that we're seeing right now, does this escalate, or can this somehow be walked back towards a semblance of a peace process? Bearing in mind, too, Robin, that declarations we've heard from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, from various other different leaders, are saying that there no longer is a role for the United States when it comes to mediating any sort of potential two-state solution. We heard from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan saying that now they are going to be turning towards the United Nations, trying to look for options for another nation or nations that could potentially try to mediate and begin bringing both sides to the table. But you really have a phenomenally tense situation right now. These types of scenes playing out on a fairly regular basis.